Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on Episode 1 of Spy Family Season 2. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So I guess, just to recap for the people sitting in the cheap seats, there's a Cold War brewing between Westalis and Ostania, and basically everything lies on the shoulders of one man. And all things considered, that's not exactly a great strategy for world peace, but Twilight, as is his codename, is rather proficient, He's a spy, he's fake married to an assassin, and he's adopted a mind reader. It's rather nifty in that everybody's sort of invested in the family despite not really knowing any of the other's secrets, If nothing else, it's certainly a nice formula for, I guess, just creating interesting scenarios. I have to say I'm a little bit disappointed with the opening theme, because the past two, they've certainly been very good, and between both the visuals and the music, it's just not working for me. Maybe I'll appreciate it more later, maybe it'll grow on me, but as of right now, that really is like the worst of the three, and it's, I suppose one of them has to be the worst, but it's unfortunate that things aren't, improving. So, it is sort of rare that we actually see Yor doing her assassin work. Granted, we didn't exactly see her slaughter these people in exacting detail. But, nevertheless, it's nice to be reminded on occasion that she is a highly proficient killer. Even if this particular instance sort of, I guess shows to us that she's not entirely infallible. She left the guy alive long enough to pop a shot off. Whether that shot was truly effective, it's not clear just yet. Now, this is classic Anya behavior, She really only cares about watching Bondman, and, the news is boring. Like, I remember being a kid and thinking the news was really boring, and now I watch the news on occasion. But, I can certainly appreciate the love of cartoons. It's rather interesting that today's episode of Bondman involves tailing a suspect. Hint, hint, hint. I think this is called foreshadowing. So, good news, bad news. Yor survived, but it seems as though she's not entirely unscathed. Dutiful housewife as she is, she got the milk and the eggs. But this is where, The confusion lies. Lloyd understands she's not feeling well, but, he's definitely not going to guess that she was shot in the posterior because she's an assassin. No rational person would jump to that conclusion. Now, it's nice that Anya's kind of upset about this, as, this would be a rather upsetting thing to hear if she were told, much less, reading someone's thoughts about it, but, Yor has proven to be pretty superhuman, so, getting shot in the butt, that might hurt, and I'd imagine it would hurt quite a bit, but, at least in her case, it's not going to be fatal. I feel like there's got to be some pretty big blood vessels in that region of the body, but, maybe the bullet just missed. So it's unfortunate that Lloyd is sort of, assuming that this whole issue is because he wanted her to buy groceries. I guess it's nice in a way that he understands that he can't take these people for granted even if they are part of an elaborate cover story. But nevertheless, if he wants to maintain that cover, he has to put some work in. I do find it interesting that Yor being in pain is sort of indistinguishable from her being angry. I guess some of it's her just trying to keep a straight face, but, clearly it's not working. Now, from our perspective, a date isn't exactly what you want to do when you've been shot in the rear. I mean, we don't know anything about whether or not the bullet's been extracted or if it passed clean through or what the deal was, but I'd imagine, assuming the best case scenario, like clean entry and exit, the whole area would still be rather, sore and swollen to say the least. I'd imagine if I had been shot, I wouldn't be too keen on going on a date anytime soon. I guess it's unfortunate that this is something Yor simultaneously does want to do, but doesn't quite feel up to. I mean, it is something that she sort of, forgot all of her pain for a second. I was given to understand that she had a reasonably high pain tolerance. Or maybe I'm just conflating things, because I know Yuri, he suffered quite a bit at her hands, and as a result has become sort of superhumanly resilient. But that's mainly in regards to eating horrible food. So you know what? I do feel a little bad for Frankie. He is always getting roped up into these schemes. Sure, he's an informant and all that, but now he's also a babysitter. I think Frankie really deserves a win sometime, because the poor guy, he just kind of gets put through the ringer a lot. Not that it's, remarkably strenuous on him or anything, but, So, to a normal person, planning out 862 possible dates might seem as, a little bit overkill, but Twilight does not do anything by half measures. Unfortunately, most of his plans seem to hinge on actually riding in the car. That's gotta be rather unfortunate to have over 700 plans wiped out in one fell swoop like that. So, while Frankie is normally making a good assumption here that cartoons could distract Anya, she has other ideas. She's getting serious now. She wants to play spy for real. And naturally she wants to ensure that the date goes well and all that by following along and watching what they do. See, as put upon as he is, Frankie, he always rises to the challenge, you know? Because, like, the idea of tailing around Lloyd and Yor, you know, he's all in on that, getting disguised and sneaking around. Not sure their disguises are particularly good, you know. I don't think it would really fool anybody determined to suss out who they are. But, you know, it'll do for just a little bit of fun. Now, I do have to wonder, just in terms of Yor's condition, is walking around really much better than sitting? Because I feel like you have a lot of muscles, presumably in the area where she got shot. If you're moving those muscles to walk, I feel like that's gotta hurt. So Lloyd's a good guy. You know, he noticed them, but he doesn't want to spoil their fun after all. You know, it would be, maybe not unbecoming, but there's no sense in doing that, you know? Although that said, they're not being remarkably stealthy, I have to say. Oh dear. So it is unfortunate that Lloyd keeps, choosing activities that would aggravate her bullet wound. You know, hey, try on these clothes with these tight pants, you know. Normally fine, in this instance, no good. And, you know, watching a movie is all well and good, but sitting down, you know, no can do, regardless of how rude it is to the rest of the theater. You know, I have to wonder at, how Anya can just sort of put up with that, because I feel like kids in boring adult films, or rather grown-up movies, you know, nothing quite like that. You know, I'd imagine they wouldn't be too keen on it. Oh, this is definitely a no-go, getting a massage. And, you know, good on Frankie. He's at least taking the opportunity to enjoy everything. That was a little visual metaphor right there, Frankie as a snake. What did the animation studio mean by that, I wonder? Now, I do have to wonder, despite this date being a bit of an impromptu thing, why doesn't Yor take, like, any, pain medication or something like that? You know, just something to, like, take the edge off. Because I feel like that would be, absolutely warranted given the circumstances. So, you know, here we go. It's the latest in a long line of things where it would be impolite to stand, you know. A big fancy restaurant. I guess fortunately she seems to be sort of bending to the pressure, you know. Can't make too much of a scene in this place, but at the same time she can't really sit down either. You know, holding a pose like that is rather remarkable, just sort of adopting a sitting position without actually supporting yourself. I mean, if nothing else, I think that speaks to a remarkable strength, but I feel like, that would be worse than actually just sitting. So now the plot thickens, you know. Obviously, Anya and Frankie, they don't have the proper attire for this restaurant, but at the same time, one of the waiters recognizes Yor as an assassin, and he has a bone to pick. So surely he's not just gonna let things go, right? He ultimately decided to leave his life of crime behind, but old habits die hard, you know. If he has a chance to knock off the Thorn Princess, you know, he might as well go for it, right? Uh, that gag never gets old. You know, I think that's the first time we've seen it where Anya contemplates a potential divorce and abandonment. I have to say, though, that gag, I think it worked better in print. But, nevertheless, you know, that's very clearly exactly how things would play out unless Anya intervenes. Now, you know what? Alcohol might be good, you know. Yours seems to be a bit of a lightweight, so if nothing else, that might numb her sense of pain. Now, I imagine it's not exactly a coincidence that they mention blowfish. Okay, so I know where this is going. You know, blowfish, they are highly poisonous if not prepared correctly, and it's a rather insidious, nasty poison, too. I believe how it works is that it like inhibits the electrical impulses that the brain sends to muscle groups. Meaning, like your heart no longer beats involuntarily. So I guess the question is, you know, what's the twist here? Surely this is not the end of Yor, even though she drank, you know, enough tetrodotoxin to kill a dozen men. Yeah, there we go. You know, that's not quite how tetrodotoxin works, but, you know, there we go. Now, I do have to wonder, you know, the narrator said she's built up an immunity to toxins and stuff like that. If that's the case, why is she such a lightweight? Because, you know, technically alcohol is kind of like a very, very mild poison, and that's what getting drunk is, basically. So I'm wondering, how is she immune to something that can kill you in relatively small doses, but alcohol, like, that does her in? So that little red circus guy, you know, poisoning's not enough for him. He has to build a bomb. And, you know, he's got a pretty sizable base of knowledge if he's able to sort of just grab stuff he has on hand at work. You know, that speaks of a pretty good working knowledge of chemistry. And, you know, it's kind of convenient that he's describing exactly how he would build this bomb, what materials he would use, and where they are. Unfortunately for him, he's kind of unaware that there are mind readers around, and mind readers who have a vested interest in stopping him. Yeah, you know, Anya, she was able to rig up something pretty darn quickly. And this is something I find interesting because oftentimes she's sort of presented as incompetent or less competent than her peers. You know, even though she basically built a bomb in record time. You know, that's certainly something, alright. Like, if that doesn't earn you a Stella Star for chemistry, frankly, I don't know what will. So now, I'm not exactly sure that this sort of gambit would pay off, that Anya would come forward, show herself, and threaten this guy. But that said, you know, she knows a lot of information she should have no way of knowing, so I'd imagine that would send a pretty clear message. You know, she knows his identity. She knows the name of his girlfriend. I guess in this guy's mind, as an organized criminal, this is a pretty unsubtle warning that maybe he should back off. You know what? Being a waiter is probably a more honorable profession than being a gangster. And generally speaking, there's a lesser risk of being blown up, too. Poor Lloyd. He thinks it was this lovely date that's fixed everything. Little does he realize that Yor was just drinking all sorts of tetrodotoxin, and that's not gonna last forever. And it's really not like a working solution either. I know just enough to know that fugu is a delicacy. And so I'd imagine that just buying a blowfish is probably a pretty expensive endeavor if you're just gonna suck out the toxin. Even for that, even if you don't care about the meat. So I feel a little bit bad for Lloyd. He's gonna get some mixed messages here. Yours telling him it was a great day and all that, but this whole date wasn't solving the problem. The problem, of course, being a bullet wound. So I guess in the end, Anya can't help herself, If they're going to an amusement park, she wants to go too. Now that sort of ruins the whole point of sneaking around and following them. But, what are you going to do? Anya's a kid after all. She already saved a couple lives. It's rather unfortunate that the bullet wound seems to be hurting even more now that the toxin's worn off. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.